Good morning, Professor Mukhaimer Saada from Al-Azhar University in Gaza.
Good morning, and I'm very honored to talk to you and see you, Gershon. It's been a while since we talked and
Yes, it has
seen
been.
each other.
I'm really glad you can speak to our seminar this afternoon, even though you're in Gaza this morning. What we're asking for people to talk to, and Ali Abu Shahala is with us, is to tell us what's the situation in Gaza today, the situation politically, economically. Where's Gaza heading? What does it look like from within Gaza? And you're a professor at a university there. You have a lot of experience. You lived there your whole life. What's happening in Gaza?
Well, this is kind of very difficult question here, but I will try to answer this to the best of my knowledge. What I can say here is that, as you all know, Gaza has been under tight siege for almost 5 years now. Yes, Israel has eased its siege and blockade of Gaza after the Freedom Flotilla incident on May of last year, but still we are suffering from the siege and from restriction of movement in and out of the Gaza Strip. Now, even though almost everything is coming from Israel through the border crossings with Gaza, but Israel still not allowing construction materials to enter the Gaza Strip, and that's why the tunnels which are operating between Gaza and Egypt nowadays are very much busy bringing construction materials, steel, cement, gravel, anything that is used for construction. Now, anyone who comes and visits Gaza for the first time in 5 years will witness that there is big construction projects, big towers and building apartments are being built in Gaza nowadays, and many people are wondering that much buildings and that much construction would mean that that would need a lot of construction materials. All of that is coming from the tunnels nowadays, as I mentioned. Now that is creating some job opportunities for many Gazans who have suffered from poverty and unemployment over the past 4 years. So that is alleviating the daily life of many Gazans here.
I wanted to ask, where's the money coming from? Okay, the building supplies are coming from the tunnels, but where's the money coming from? Where do people have money to build?
To be honest with you, most of the project building are in Gaza City itself, and Gaza City itself, where I live very much, is the majority of people who live in Gaza City are business people, rich people. Now, these are very much apartment buildings which are being sold between $120,000 to almost $150,000 per apartment. Some people who are in business, some people who are in I guess they have saved some money. They are asking for such an apartment and they are buying it.
But are there mortgages? Are the banks giving mortgages? Are there loans? I mean, $150,000 in cash is a lot.
Yes, the banks in Gaza are still giving loans to employees, but those who are working for the PA are not getting loans in an easy way. Most people who are getting loans, those who are working with UNRWA, those who are working with privates, with the NGOs, and like myself, who are working with universities and private sector, are getting loans from the banks much easier. But those who are working for the Palestinian Authority, because of some problems with getting paid over the past 6 months, there has been a problem, but still people are getting loans from local banks, especially from Bank of Palestine, which is the bank with the most client here in Gaza.
But we know that most of the people living in Gaza are refugees. They're not employees, they're unemployed, they're poor and they're suffering. How are they surviving all these years?
Now, as I mentioned to you, Gaza Strip is housing 1.7 million people. About 500,000 people are living in Gaza City, where there's only one refugee camp, which is the beach refugee camp. The refugees are scattered more in Jabalia refugee camp in the north, in the middle area where there are 3 refugee camps, Nusayrat, Burej, and Magazi refugee camps. There are a couple of others in the south, in Khan Yunis and Rafah. Now, I agree with you, Gershon, that most of the problem that we are facing here in Gaza are in the refugee camps, where poverty, unemployment, social problems, in refugee camps. And now, to be honest with you, what makes things easy for the majority of people here is that around 70,000 people are still on the payroll of the Palestinian Authority, even though around 50,000 of them are not working, are not reporting to their jobs, they are very much staying home. But some others, teachers, doctors, social workers, who are still on the payroll of the Palestinian Authority are getting paid. There are around 10,000 Palestinians working for UNRWA and its agencies here in Gaza, a number of other Palestinians working for NGOs, private sector, and universities. But the other thing is that around 70% of Gaza people are getting food support, financial support from UNRWA, World Food Program, WFP, some local NGOs. So a good number of Gazans are very much dependent on support, food support, program support from many agencies here in Gaza.
I see. And what about the political situation? There's talk of reconciliation between Fatah and Hamas, but we know that the Hamas, Ezzeddin al-Qassam, the Hamas security forces, are not really part of these discussions of reconciliation, and if there is political reconciliation, they will probably not agree to a reintegration of Fatah forces into the Hamas forces. So where do we stand politically with what's going on in Gaza?
Now, to be honest with you, the people here in Gaza are very much sick and tired of this reconciliation effort. We have been hearing about reconciliation for the past 3 years, since the Gaza offensive, the cash-lead operation on Gaza at the end of 2008 and 2009, by Egypt and some other Arab countries, to reunite the Palestinian two factions, Fatah and Hamas. Now, we have been hearing about these reconciliation efforts for some time. Nothing has happened on the ground, and we very much feel that the political divide between West Bank and Gaza is not going to be resolved easily or in the near future. It seems to me that what I can say about this, in my opinion, that the meeting which was held between President Mahmoud Abbas and Khalid Mish'al last week in Cairo, that both have agreed to keep both governments, the government in Gaza led by Haniya and the government in the West Bank led by Fayyad, until May. And if they can agree, it seems to me what was mentioned by President Mahmoud Abbas, that elections for the president and for the parliament will take place on May 4th. What it seems to me that we are going for presidential and parliamentary elections in May, but without dissolving either one of the two governments. They are going to keep both governments until election, and whoever wins the election in May takes the whole thing, rule over the West Bank and Gaza. Very much, people are very frustrated, are not sure that this reconciliation will resolve the political divide. We feel that the facts which have been created on the ground by Hamas here in Gaza over the past 4.5 years are not going to be easily removed. This is going to be a very, very tough issue to deal with in the future.
You mean if Hamas were to lose the elections, you don't think that they would give up power?
Now, it's probably premature to say right now who's going to win and who's going to lose. Very much we do not believe in public opinion polls here in the Palestinian territories. They are not trustworthy. But it seems to me that what might happen is that Hamas will win in the West Bank and Fatah will win the elections in the Gaza Strip.
Really?
I guess the Palestinians in Gaza are sick and tired of Hamas, and the people in the West Bank are not happy with Fayyad. Probably the occupation, settlement expansion, checkpoints is a problem that is facing the Palestinians in the West Bank. Now, as I mentioned to you, I don't really know
that most people.
the election.
I think that most people in the West Bank are actually pleased with Fayyad and the developments of the last years. Their lives, according to what most people say, are better today than their lives were 3 or 4 years ago. And this they credit to a great extent Fayyad, with all the projects and the better accountability, the government institutions that are functioning. So I'm not sure if this idea that Hamas would win in the West Bank is true also.
Now, as I mentioned to you, I'm just making an estimation here. Now, I agree with you that the economic daily life of the Palestinians in the West Bank is much better nowadays than it used to be 4 or 5 years ago. But I also believe that when the Palestinians are looking from their windows and seeing Israeli settlements are expanding and they are seeing the Israeli occupation is in the middle of their towns and their cities, that is reflecting a bad image of the Palestinian Authority, as Hamas basically is saying here in the Gaza Strip that security coordination between the Palestinian Authority and Israel is hurting the Palestinians, and the PA must do something to impose pressure on Israel and the occupation to be ended.
Okay, so let's go back to Gaza. What is life like under Hamas in Gaza? You've been living under it now for years. They're the government there. They're the ruling party there. They run everything. What's it like?
Well, overall, I can say that the situation nowadays is much better than it used to be 3 or 4 years ago. I have to say, once Hamas took over the Gaza Strip, they were very much rounding up almost everyone who was suspected, a member of Fatah or a member of the PA. Many people were arrested, many people were persecuted. In addition to that, when Hamas came to power the first 2 years, they imposed a number of measures to Islamize the Gaza society when it comes to imposing the hijab, which is the veil on student high schools, on female lawyers. As you probably know, 2 years ago also they prohibited smoking nargila, pipe water for women in Gaza shops. I think they understood that this is the wrong way to do it with Gaza City, that the majority of the Palestinians here in Gaza were unhappy, dissatisfied with these measures by Hamas, and many of these measures were taken back. And now I have also to add that Hamas performance as a government, as ministries, as public servants has improved over the past few years. I have to say that things are improving. In addition to that, it's either Hamas or the municipalities here in Gaza Strip that a number of projects, paving new roads, improving the services are taking place, even though we are still having a very serious problem with electricity, which is going out more than 8 hours per day. But it seems to me Hamas as a government, Hamas as ministries and public servants are doing much better than they used to do 4 or 3 years ago.
But nonetheless, you said that if there were elections, you think Hamas would lose in Gaza because people are sick and tired of their rule. So maybe services are improved, but they still don't want Hamas.
The thing is that, as I mentioned to you, Hamas has done a much better job when it comes to performing as a government, but the main problems are the same. Poverty is around according to many international agencies, around 70% of Gaza people live under poverty line, which is $1.50 per person. Unemployment is around 40 to 45%. So when I say that Hamas might lose in Gaza, I say because even though Hamas, after the prisoner exchange deal with Israel, releasing Gilad Shalit for around 1,000 Palestinian prisoners, Hamas was able to boost its popularity. But a month now after the prisoner exchange deal, the daily life of the Palestinians here in Gaza is the same: poverty, unemployment, restriction of movement. Now, even though Rafah is open, but it's not open in a very normal way. People have to pre-register in order to travel out of Gaza. Sometimes the Egyptians are reporting some problems within the terminal. So the main three problems: poverty, unemployment, and restriction of movement for the Gazans are the main problems. And that's why I believe Hamas is not, this is not within the hands of Hamas now. Hamas is saying that it's Israel who is imposing siege and blockade on the people, but the people of Gaza also in the meantime understand that Hamas taking over the Gaza Strip was the reason for this siege and blockade over the Gaza.
Now, as a professor at a university in Gaza, how would you describe the extent of academic freedom? Both for you as a professor to speak your mind, to have open political debate on campus, the freedom of students to enjoy academic freedom. And you've studied in the West, you know what it's like in a Western university. How would you estimate the freedom of academic freedom in Gaza?
Now, let me begin by saying that where I teach, which is Al-Azhar University, is a very secular, liberal university here in the Gaza Strip. Professors and students are allowed to speak their minds. Even I teach in a mixed university where boys and girls are in the same campus and they interact with each other. So it's very much different from many other universities here in the Gaza Strip. Now, when it comes to what, we do speak what we say, we do express our opinions on campus without any problems. But as you probably know, in addition to teaching, sometimes I am being asked to speak to the media, whether on TV or on to the press. And I have to say that that has been a very delicate situation. I can't say that I have been able to speak everything I want, or I was able to say anything. I have to say that I have gotten some phone calls warning me of what I say, to watch what I say, and not to criticize Hamas. That has happened to me over the past 4 years. Now, sometimes I do take that into consideration. But on the meantime, I feel that I have to say what I believe in, whether to criticize Hamas or not. But yes, it does happen sometimes. And now this is you asked me this as a professor where I teach, but I have to say that it is being reported by human rights organizations, by many NGOs here in the Gaza Strip, that sometimes people are being arrested and persecuted for just speaking against the government. What I know is that 4 Palestinian journalists are being held by the Hamas security services right now unsuspicious of criticizing the Hamas-led government here in Gaza.
Right. And your students also enjoy academic freedom? They feel that they can speak their minds, not just the professors, or are students very cautious?
Now, the overwhelming majority of our students at Al-Azhar they belong to Fatah and the PLO factions. A small number of our students belong to Hamas movement. I do see, sometimes in lectures, we do see heated debates between the students, those who belong to Hamas and those who belong to the PLO factions. Now, debates happen, people argue, people discuss politics on campus and in classroom. I haven't, honestly, I haven't heard of any case where a student was arrested because of his public opinions or because of his participation in a discussion with a Hamas person or so forth.
My last question, Mukhaimer, is elections are now taking place in Egypt. Presumably, everyone expects the Muslim Brotherhood party and affiliates to win those elections. How will this impact on the relations between Egypt and Gaza? What impact will those elections have on the Gaza Strip?
Now,
Start again. We can't hear you. You were cut off. 1 second. Start again.
What I'm trying to say is that the relationship between Hamas and the Hamas regime here in Gaza and the Egyptian authorities are much better now than they used to be a year ago. Since the collapse of Mubarak regime, the relationship between Hamas and the military council is much better. What we can now, first of all, the Rafah border crossing is functioning in a much better way than it used to be a year ago. And it seems to me that there is high-level coordination and high-level contacts between Hamas and the Egyptian authorities. Now, once these parliamentary elections are over, which is going to be over by the beginning of January, now many polling institutions are expecting that the Muslim Brotherhood organization might win something between 35 to 40% in Egypt, which would mean the next government in Egypt will be led by the Muslim Brotherhood, Al-Ikhwan. That will definitely improve the relationship between Hamas and Egypt. Now, we also have to take into consideration that the results of the Tunisian elections were in favor of the Muslim, the Nahda party, who won 41%. The results of the election in Morocco brought the Party of Justice and Development, also they were the bigger party. So it is very much expected that the Muslim Brotherhood organization are going to win in Egypt. Now, in my opinion, even though that we might see a much more cooperative relationship between Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, because in my opinion, Hamas is a branch of the Muslim Brotherhood organization. Most of Hamas top leaders in the Gaza Strip were educated and socialized in Egypt during the 1970s and the 1980s when they went to universities and schools in Egypt. But that, in my opinion, that should not bring a big alarm here. I don't think that neither Hamas nor the Muslim Brotherhood are interested in provoking Israel or starting a new war in the Middle East. I believe both movements, whether Hamas or the Muslim Brotherhood, will be much more focused and dedicated to improving the daily life, whether in Egypt by fighting against corruption, poverty, unemployment. So I don't think war and provocation is on their agenda. They are much more interested and dedicated to improving the daily life of their people.
That's good to hear. Professor Mukhaimer Abu Saada, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gershon, and my greetings to all of your guests there at Ambassador Hotel, and I hope to be able to see you sometime very soon.
Inshallah. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Take care. Thank you.